start. I'm very excited to have this opportunity today to join together. And we've got a few minutes before we're going to start. So just giving everybody a chance to come in and get settled. And I'm so happy you're here, Aisha, and so happy to see you, Kieran J, Sage, so many people, Sean. We've got Carla coming in. I see Faith is there. Oh, I feel a little bit like Mr. Rogers, right? Remember, didn't he say like, and I see Karen, and I see Susie, and I see Herb, and and lots of folks here. So I'm glad you're joining us. Also, I invite you to please do as looks like Tico just did in the chat, to tell us where you're signing in from. Oh, Bo. Okay, sorry, Bo. And we've got Lynn. We're live streaming on the A Course of Miracles podcast page at Facebook. Hey, everybody at Facebook. I also invite you to share what's your intention, because there's no extra charge to have an intention. And when we have an intention, we can have an intention be realized. So let's place our intentions in the chat. And I'm going to do just that. I'm in Vermont, and my intention is to have clearing and expansion. And I'm certain that will be the case here. Yeah, it's a warm, sunny day here in Vermont. And we've got folks, we've got Sean is there in Florida, Kieran J is there in England, Aish is there in Los Angeles, and Carla, who's going to join us, is up in Oregon. And so we got people all over the place. And there's Ray Davis is here. And I'm very excited for what is going to unfold today. Oh, Sandy Campbell is here. Wow, we got some great people. Rico is here. So people are coming in, settling into our Sundays with Spirit. People have been telling me how much they really, really love these services, and it means a lot to them. People are telling me what healing they're having. And, you know, I have such a strong intention that we will have a healing. So I love to hear about people's healing experiences. So I appreciate anyone who shares that kind of thing with us or with me. Thank you for doing that. And I tell you, I just get swept up into these services, and the energetics have been so powerful, and they're especially powerful today because we've got such a powerful group coming together. And I would like to also just let everybody know, in case you don't know, today is a new moon. We've got a new moon. So we have a new moon, we have an eclipse. Yesterday was the solstice. Friday, things went Mercury retrograde. So the whole of heaven is aligning for us to experience the highest and best. And I'm sure that we will continue to do that. I've been in the midst of doing my first online retreat, leading my Stop Playing Small retreat. I see Penelope there from the UK. She's in the retreat. Sean's in the retreat. We've got just a wonderful group of people, and we are having tremendous transformation and healing. I'm just so grateful for it. And all right, I think we are about ready to begin. And so we're going to start off with a prayer from Carla. Oh, we have to have you unmuted there, Carla. I think you have to do that for yourself.
All right, got it. Thank you. First, I want to extend my appreciation for this opportunity. I want to thank God for appearing as my sister Angela, who it asked me to pray today. And secondly, I want to thank God as my sister Jennifer, who is making this great opportunity for all of us to join, to give me this opportunity to pray. And lastly, I want to thank God for giving me everything I am, everything I have, everything I wish to extend right now. So I'm going to pray. Father, God, life, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share, to connect with each other, to discover the truth more clearly, to hear the truth. And everybody's sharing every song, every flower, everything, every cloud in the sky. But we're here right now. We're open to truth and we're grateful. There's no end to the gratitude. And we notice what is shared, what comes up for healing. Because right now the world is healing. And we are supporting the world's healing by healing ourselves, allowing the truth to arise, allowing whatever comes up to come up without judgment, just let it go. And I declare that this is a momentous occasion. We are growing in the light. We are learning to love in all our choices, expanding our awareness, showing the world a new way of being through allowing the God Self to extend through us in our choices. And I bless this time together. I bless each one here with me, holding space for the truth, for the light, for the love that we all are. God is extending through us. The blessings don't end. And I bless it all. I bless this time, open to what's going to unfold in this time together. And grace, the action of God in our lives. And gratitude, our response to any action of God. I say amen. And so it is. Thank you.
And so it is. Carla. All right. So it is my true joy and pleasure to welcome everyone. And I am grateful to be able to introduce Ray Davis here. I'm so excited for him, and I thank Faith Rumor for helping us to arrange our musical guest. And Ray Davis is one of the most inspired musicians I know. And I'm just looking, I don't see Ray. He was here a minute ago. There you are, Ray. Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's so great. It's so great that we can all join together across the airwaves here, transcending space and time to be together, because we'll have a lot of people watching the video and listening later. And, I'd love to just share a little bit. I know Ray from the Agape community. I think he's one of the most inspired musicians I've ever had the joy to be in the presence of. He's a singer-songwriter who has a mission to personally introduce the world to high vibe music and arts. And according to Ray, high vibe celebrates the best and highest ideas about life, humanity, and each individual's unique opportunity to contribute something good to the world, without pandering to simplistic feel-good formulas or cliches. And Ray's songs speak of personal challenges as well as transformation and of questions along with answers. He uses stories and reflection to suggest new ways to deal with the old common issues. His music is powerful soul medicine for those who are sick and tired of mediocrity and the status quo. So get ready to be lifted to a very high vibration. Thank you for being here, Ray.
It's my joy. It's my joy, Jennifer. It's good to see you. I saw somebody put a note that you look radiant. And it's true. I haven't seen you in a minute, and you look wonderful.
Thank
That's
you.
everyone who's assembled here. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is a song of meditation called Morning Song. Here's a song for the morning, rising, breathing the feeling of nothing but blue skies, fresh and clear, nothing to fear in this bright field of love and possibilities. Here's tale of time for sitting silent, still breathing in the moment, this moment before the clank and harmony of where to be descend to me. I see as I breathe, I remember. Here's a song for the morning, rising, breathing the feeling of nothing but blue skies, fresh and clear, nothing to fear in this bright field of love and possibility.
We have silent applause.
Yay.
Ah, that was so heart-opening. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As Sean wrote in the comments, beautiful ray of light, indeed. Indeed, we are lifted and we are shifted. It's wonderful, it's happening. So we've got more to come from Ray, and now we are going to hear from our wonderful speaker, Aisha Mason. And I've known Aisha, I don't know when I first met Aisha, but we have been collaborating for a while. And we first got to really know each other back in the 90s, working on a season for nonviolence. Some of you may remember that program at Agape. So let me tell you a little bit about Aisha here, because she's been a teacher to me for a long time. So she's a colleague, a comrade, a friend, and a teacher to me. And Aisha's a transformational counselor. She's a spiritual counselor and spiritual teacher. She's a community facilitator, and she's an activist. She's a spiritual activist. And she is a spiritual practitioner in the tradition of New Thought, Ancient Wisdom. She's taught classes and worked in private practice for 34 years. She co-founded Common Unity, which is the community outreach ministry for Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. And she has taught professional practitioner training classes at Agape for over a decade. She's a published author focusing on the intersections of social justice, nonviolence, spirituality, and the soul work of social change. For 29 years, Aisha has created programs that support individuals harnessing the power of soul force for personal transformation, social justice, and peacemaking. Aisha has served as founding executive director of the Center for the Advancement of Nonviolence and co-founder of Soul Force Trainings after spearheading the launch of the first season for nonviolence in Los Angeles in 1998. Aisha co-founded Acts of Power, the liberation of the African American Soul Training and Community Healing Forum to assist affected communities in responding to loss and trauma. And for 9 years, Aisha hosted the Morning Review and later the Way Forward radio programs for KPFK in, well, I guess that's everywhere. She is contributor to the books How to Stop the Next War Now and Together We Are One, Honoring Our Diversity and Celebrating Our Connection. She's also the co-author of the 64 Ways to Practice Nonviolence Curriculum and Resource Guide. Aisha recently retired from the American Friends Service Committee, a Quaker-based international peace and justice organization, where she served as the Associate Regional Director, U.S. West Region, and she supported programs addressing immigration rights, economic justice, and healing justice. And it is my pleasure to introduce her to this community and to be able to have an opportunity just to hear your inspirational message for us today, Aisha. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's so good to reconnect with you at this perfect time, when everything is upside down, up in the air. We're on a journey that is totally brand new, and then to hear from you was just fantastic. And I thought, oh, I gave her a bio and she'll take a little clip, but it was so good that you read it all, because after Ray sang, I was a wreck. That is not unique. Often when Ray sings, I'm a wreck by the end. So at least I could compose myself a little bit before my opportunity to share with you this morning. I thought I knew what I was going to talk about until yesterday. And I thought I was going to talk about events that are taking place in the world and where we fit in that and how to participate in that. And then I was up in the closet in my, I just moved and there are boxes everywhere and stuff everywhere. And I opened a box looking for something, and these letters from my father. Whew. showed up. And I didn't realize I had more than one letter from my father. And I realized in that moment that my talk was going to change and that I really was going to talk about Father's Day. Father's Day brings up mixed emotions for me, because when I look on Facebook, or I could lie and say on Instagram, but I'm really just looking on Facebook, and I'll see all these people post these pictures of their dads and how great it was and what a great relationship they have and how they love each other. And it always feels, I'm always torn. I'm not clear about whether I want to do that. And because my father and I had a very complex and difficult relationship for much of my life. But I think that's true for a lot of people. There's this ideal scene, this father knows best, Ozzie and Harriet, Bill Cosby type image of what it's like for the dad. If you're lucky enough to have a dad that you know and that is alive and that is in your home. But it's not really always like that. And so what my talk is about is that principles are absolute, but life is messy. And principles are absolute, but relationships are messy. And we really learn these principles and we develop these skills so that we can embody them and enrich our relationships and fulfill the contract, the spiritual contract between two people when we have the skills to do it. And I think my father's and my journey is certainly the illustration of that in my life. My dad was probably my greatest teacher. And it turns out he still is, even though he made his transition a couple of years ago. My dad, my parents were married 67 years. My dad was a very critical person. He was a very controlling person. And my dad was a fearful person. He would always be saying, go, don't do that, this, and the worst case scenario of what might happen. And that's not all of who he was, but that was the big part of the story that I had about my dad. And as my teacher, I learned from my dad to be afraid, to be afraid a lot, and to be critical of other people, and to be very, very critical of myself. To be driven to perfection, because the more perfect I was, perhaps the safer I would be, the more worthy I would be, and yet it would never be good enough. And in fact, when I grew up and I finished college, I moved all the way across country to Los Angeles, to the other side of the continent, to create some space between my father and I, so that I could have the room to develop my own sense of self, like a self outside of what he thought I should be, what he thought I should do, how he thought I should behave. I needed that much space to be able to claim myself. And as it turned out, to begin my spiritual studies and to begin to learn the skills and develop the practices that would help me remember who I really am and whose I really am. And would give me the skills to be able to express that in my life. Because of my father, as my teacher, I also learned how to find my own voice, as opposed to overriding my voice with the opinions and the thoughts of other people. And because of my father, I learned to love myself just as I am, rather than only if I was perfect. Because of my father, I learned how to give people a little more space to be human, and in turn give myself more space to be human. I learned how to set boundaries because I had none. And I learned how to say no without making somebody wrong, without being harsh, without being mean, but actually saying yes to myself. And sometimes that meant saying no to someone else. And because of my father, I learned it's not all personal. Not to personalize everything that someone does that is directed at me, but it's not necessarily about me. It's about them. So there are two ways of looking at my father as my teacher. And the second one is certainly the one I want to carry in my heart, because he launched that in me. And he gave me the opportunity to practice all those things. there are two things that really changed my relationship with my dad. And the first one was emerged out of a project that I had when I was getting my master's degree at the University of Santa Monica. And as part of one of our psychology courses, we had to create a genogram in which we looked at our family history and looked for patterns in the family to see, so we could get greater insight into what patterns we might be repeating and then have the opportunity to break that pattern. So I'm in my 40s when we do this project, and I think there are not a lot of surprises here, but I'm having a conversation with my mom, and she casually, very matter-of-factly mentions, well, you know, grandmother, she had agoraphobia. I'm like, what? Like I'm flipping through my mind now, agoraphobia. And that's when you're afraid to go outside. You only feel safe in your space. I'm like, I didn't know that. She said, oh yeah, she was hospitalized a few times. I'm like, hospitalized? That's some serious stuff. And this has had to be back in, my father was born in 1920. So this had to be like, you know, in the 30s and the 40s when mental health, mental treatment was very different from what it is now. So here's this huge elephant in the room that in my 40 years, no one has ever mentioned. That my grandmother had mental illness. She suffered from mental illness. And so I approached my father, and he goes, yeah, like I thought he would try to hide it or deny it, but he's kind of, yeah, that's true. So I said, well, Dad, how did that affect you? How did that affect your family? And he's like, you know, like he's really blank. Like he's trying to be helpful for my paper, but there's really nothing there. And he says, well, we just, you know, we do what families do. Oof. And in that moment, my story about my father began to crumble. Because suddenly I saw him not as the father, the man who shaped my life, but as a boy living in a house with a whole lot going on that he had no language for, no way to process. I thought, is this where that fear comes from? Is that where that need to control things comes from? Is that what this need to be really perfect or not to be, you know, to be critical? How does this all fit together? And my heart opened to my father in a whole new way. And that was the beginning of the healing in my relationship, because I began to see this human being who was carrying a lot of weight I had never recognized. I walked for a second in his shoes, and I began to see that he was doing the best he could. You know, that's the fourth agreement in the book of the Four Agreements. Do your best. And your best looks different on different people at different times. But what I was clear about was my dad was doing his best. And this is what it looked like based on the resources he had and the capacity that he had. So the next big breakthrough in our relationship came when my mother died. And nobody thought that my father would outlive my mother. My father had said since he was in his 30s, I'll be dead by the time I'm 40. And my father died at 98. So it was a shock when my mother was the one who passed, and was a very traumatic passing with cancer. That's not pretty. And that broke my father. It just broke him open. They had been married 67 years. And it broke open with that loss and that love, but also with regrets and with judgment. And I think my mom and I had been so close. I never really talked that much to my dad. You know, when I called, my mother would be on that phone and we'd be, and like kind of edging him out. And now she wasn't there. And so I started calling him every day for a year. Like he needed contact every day for a year to make sure he was still there. and to do what I could to comfort him long distance. Because I was a more healed person, because I was a more whole person, because I had more skills, because of these principles and this practice, I could be there for my father and not lose myself. I could be there for my father and know when it was time to step back, to take care of me, and when I could lean in. I could be more accepting of whatever his mood was or however he was communicating because of this practice. Like, I really want to communicate. We learn these principles and we learn these skills not to escape the world, but to be able to get into the world and be present in relationships so that they fulfill their sacred purpose and so that they liberate us and so that they liberate the people with whom we're in relationship. As I created space for my dad, I was creating space inside of me. I was embodying these principles and these values and these practices inside of me in a whole new way. I was able to accept my dad and take care of me and give him one example I will share is this thing with, like, we all have our shadow side. We all have multiple shadow sides. And this thing would come over him sometimes where he'd want to debate, and the debate would end up in intense arguments that were really violent for me to be around. And we were having a nice visit, and all of a sudden he started talking about something that he knew would trigger me. He knew would trigger me. It was political. He knew I would get engaged. And there was one moment when I started to, and then I caught myself. I was like, oh, that's the pattern. That's not him. That's that pattern speaking. And I was able to pull myself back and really get quiet. And then lean into him and say, Dad, we have so little time to visit with each other. I don't want to fight. My time with you is so precious. I don't want to fight. Let's just enjoy the evening together. And I literally could see something rattle around in him and then calm down and dissipate. And we could really enjoy the time that we had together. But that was only possible because of the teachings, the principles, the practice. I want to say that it's not all about being of service to someone else. I want to reiterate again, it's service to self. Because I realized I had a story, continued to realize I had a story about my dad. I told you I found these letters upstairs in my house. When I first moved, there are boxes everywhere. There's paper everywhere. And in the middle of a bunch of stuff unrelated to anything, there's this letter from my dad. It was a letter that he wrote a year after I moved to Los Angeles. And you'll know this was the guy who was like, get a 9-to-5, get a steady job, stay there till you retire, collect your your pension. And I hadn't done that. This letter encouraged me to follow my dreams. And in this letter, he had said, I wanted to prospect for gold when I was young. I have no idea where that came from. But that was so intimate. I wanted to prospect for gold, and I didn't do it. And I'm sorry I didn't do it. So I want you to go for your dreams. Now, I had this story about my father, and this broke open that story again. Not only that he encouraged me to follow my dreams, and I didn't remember that, but he had written to me. And I said, oh, my dad really didn't communicate that much. So in letting go of a story I had about him, I let go of a story I had about me and a story I had about our relationship that wasn't completely true. So my dad passed a couple of years ago, and he didn't want a memorial service. But we decided to have one anyway for us. And everyone there who knew him. So I really was thinking, what can I say that's authentic about my dad? And I really landed with, he did his best, the fourth agreement. With all that he had available, he did his best. So I invite you to remember that for yourself, that you're doing your best. And if you think you're not, then step it up a little bit. But the people around you, given who they are in the moment, what they know in the moment, what their capacity is in the moment, they're doing their best. If you want them to do better, help them do better. But don't stand back and just beat them up and keep them in that little box. Help them get out of that box. Recently, with this move, 3 things happened. I want to leave them with you. All of which have helped me take these abstract principles and make them real and more alive in me now. The day I'm moving, and if you've ever moved, again, you know, stuff is everywhere. And there's people moving everywhere. And I look down in this little corner and I see this box I've never noticed. And I see the handwriting on the box and I know it's my father's handwriting. And I've never seen this box before. So I open the box, it's like really weird. It's a back massager. But I have no idea how long that box has been there. But I found it on the day I was moving. Now I also realized that meant I never thanked my father for this gift. And I'm sure at some point he wondered, why didn't she say anything? And he never said anything. But he did give it to me on the day I moved. I told you I found this letter. It said, you know, go for it. Stay in California. And then the day that I was here and people were unpacking, someone's hold up this little bag. He says, what? They say, what's this? A kid picks it up. What's this? And it was my father's binoculars. And I thought, that's no accident. So from the box with the back massager, I decided my father has been telling me, take it easy, don't overdo. I decided the letter was to say, remember to keep following your dreams. And those binoculars that are sitting on my bureau, it's to say, don't judge by first appearance. Look a little closer. Look more deeply. Look with your heart. So on this Father's Day, it turns out I am honoring my father. And the profundity of this sacred relationship and it's how it's helped grow me. I pray for his happiness when I pray for mine. I pray for my awakening. I pray for his. And I just keep in mind that we're all souls awakening to our divinity. So that's what I leave with you on this Father's Day, with much love, much, much, much gratitude for this journey, for this thing called life. And so it is.
So it is. What a heart-opening message. Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you so much. I can feel everyone who's listening and those who will listen in the future, that we are shifting, recalibrating right here, right now into our loving heart because of your journey and your loving heart that you're sharing with us today. And thank you for bringing a Father's Day message today. So perfect. I couldn't be more thrilled and happy and grateful. And so I'm going to invite everybody. We're going to this is our healing meditation time. And so I'm grateful to invite everybody to just turn within here. Maybe place your hand on your heart. And let us just feel that deep heart opening that Aisha has shared with us. The journey of her relationship to her father and her relationship with herself and in spiritual maturity, opening her heart, opening her mind, having the capacity and the willingness to release the judgments she held against her father and probably against herself as well. So grateful that we can open our hearts and our minds to the love of God that resides within each one of us, that unites each one of us. And so in this moment, let us take the opportunity to look at our fathers and grandfathers with new eyes, with a heart open. Maybe they were doing their best when we judged that they could have done better. Maybe they could have done better if we could have helped them. Maybe we didn't want to help them. And now it's time for us to release the judgments that we might have against ourselves, regrets, guilt, blame, shame, that we might be holding on to. Now is the time for us to make an offering of it, offering it up to Spirit, to our own higher Holy Spirit self. This is the holy opportunity right here, right now, to open ourselves to the infinite capacity for Spirit to heal that which we are willing to have healed. This is the spiritual teaching of A Course in Miracles, that if we are willing, that is all that is required. If we are willing to have a healing, if we are willing to awaken from the dream of separation, if we are willing to extend compassion, if we are willing to let the past go, our willingness is all that's required. Our own higher Holy Spirit self will provide for us everything that's necessary for us to have the healing, the awakening, the expansion, the compassion, the heart opening, the forgiveness, the freedom, and the joy that we desire. Our willingness is all that's required. And willingness is not just a word. It is not. It is, as Aisha is sharing with us, it is an active spiritual practice. It is a practice. It is something that we hold on to and keep in front of us all day, every day, that we are willing to be that fulcrum point of healing in all our relationships. So in this moment, the invitation is any place in your life, doesn't have to be with your father, any place in your life with any brother or sister, because at some point our parents do become our brothers and sisters on this journey. And we start to turn to our Heavenly Mother and Father and recognize that our parents are now our brothers and sisters on this journey. And our responsibility is to hold each other up with love and with compassion, with understanding, so that the wisdom of pure spirit can flow into our awareness and we can be truly helpful, truly useful to ourselves and each other. We are the ones that we have waited for. We are doing this healing for all of our ancestors, for every generation that went before us, and we cannot wait another day, not another moment. We may have fathers and mothers that couldn't forgive their parents, and they passed that on to us, and we can forgive them. And we can forgive on their behalf because we're one with them. We have this power. We have this ability. We are not helpless. We are not hopeless, nor could we ever be. No matter how much we might feel helpless or hopeless in any particular moment, we will never, ever be that. We are powerful spiritual beings. And our power is the ability to love. To love. We don't have to like everybody or the things that they do in order to extend love to our brothers and our sisters, our mothers and our fathers and our ancestors. What we have inherited from our family is ours to heal. And it's not a mistake. And it is not a burden. It is the gift that we have asked for and we have received it. And it is time for us to have the spiritual maturity to do what we came to do, and that is to be the love, to be the fulcrum point of healing in all of our relationships, and to not wait for anybody to go first or to say, I'm sorry. We don't have to wait. The waiting is over. The time is now. And we are activated. We are alive. This is our time. This is our time. And so in this moment, I invite you to call to your inner mind's eye the face of anyone that you've been holding something against, waiting for them to go first. Maybe they've passed on, maybe they're still here. That doesn't matter. We're eternal. Call to mind the face, the vibration, the feeling, tone of anyone that you've been holding anything against. And in your heart, see if you are willing to now be done with investing your precious time, your precious energy, your precious life, your intellect, your capacity, holding on to something from the past. Will you set yourself free now? This is the opportunity. Spirit will do the heavy lifting of reorganizing everything energetically if we are really willing. Our willingness is all that is required. So breathing deeply, let us amplify our willingness, and let us be willing on behalf of all of our brothers and sisters around the world. Let us be willing for those who seem so unwilling. Let us be willing on their behalf. Let our willingness be magnified and felt around the world. Let our willingness be magnified and multiplied and felt throughout time and space, because we are one with everyone. So we forgive ourselves. We release the judgment against ourselves for waiting so long. We forgive ourselves. We made a mistake, and that is that. We can move forward in love now. Love is our true identity, and love restores and redeems us. And we have love. We have love to extend and to share. And in the extension, in the sharing, we are renewed and restored. So let us get about our Father's business right now and love ourselves free of the past. We're taking everyone along on this journey of love. So we are grateful to choose healing, to allow it to be done, to share the benefits with everyone, and we let it be. And so it is. Amen. 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 And I invite you to just stay in this healing mode as we listen to the beautiful high vibe of Ray Davis.
Thank you for that beautiful meditative space. And as Aisha was speaking, I took some notes. I wrote, as consciousness expands, old stories crumble and are retold, compassion emerges. This song is called Compassion.
All right, this is how we applaud in the silence. So yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I learned that from Liz and Paul Racy. Ah, woo! We are riding a high vibration today. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. We are in tune. It is so beautiful. All right. Well, we're going to take things up a notch here, if you can believe it. Oh, my goodness. And so what we do next in our Sunday service is something that is unique, and people are loving it. They are saying that it is one of the best parts of this service. So if you think this has been great, you may just get ready to go higher and higher. So what we do is we use the Zoom technology to have a breakout into small groups. And this is where you really can anchor your own healing. In the small groups, you don't have to share unless you would like to. You are welcome to just listen with compassion. Compassionate listening is a very active contribution, and we welcome that. But if you feel that you are, if you'd like to, there's the opportunity to share here and to share what has the message, the meditation, the music inspired you to today. This is an opportunity for you to articulate maybe some forgiveness, to articulate the release of some judgments or some complaints or grievances you might have been holding. Maybe it's an opportunity to just say how much you love and appreciate somebody that they've passed on, and you never were able to say exactly how you felt. This is an opportunity for you to really have a heart-opening sharing that really allows you to anchor in the love of your own spirit. So we don't have a lot of rules about these breakouts. We just don't give any advice. We give no advice. We just listen with compassion, heart open, and we share authentically, and that's our deal. So we go into a short breakout, and then we'll come back and we'll have another song from Ray and a little more sharing. So, all right, Sean is going to take us into that breakout. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for being here. All right, if you can't see, just for the folks who can't find their breakout button, if you look along the bottom bar where it says breakout, you can click there and it'll give you your breakout room. If you can't find it, you can maybe put something in the chat, but that's usually where you can find it, on the breakout room bar, on the bottom bar where it says breakout rooms. And for those who are on Facebook, I'm going to chat here with Ray and Aisha. And yeah, so since Ray was the last one to share me before, you go next, Aisha. What, do you have anything more you'd like to share for our Facebook listeners? Just your own, whatever you'd like to share.
You know what? There was something that I forgot to say that I think is important as part of this story. Mm-hmm. So I had the, evolution. My father is no longer the villain in my story, and I'm the victim. But then he's also in this box again, where, oh, look at all these things that happened to him, and he's carried this all his life. And so the next phase of my own awakening, my own healing, is to realize, well, free him from that story too. Start to think about the things my father, the moments I know my father loved life and was really happy. Like, I remember the first time my dad got on a plane. They took a trip out of the country. He'd never been on a plane and he didn't want to go. But once he went that first time, he was hooked. I want to remember him like that. I want to remember the pleasure he took in carpentry or taking photographs. When he bought the house that we moved into, you know, I know how I have a sense of how he felt when he found it and was able to do that for his family. So that's my next step of freeing him from the second box into being a happy, free, whole, joyful memory that affirms that in his spirit, even now. As I do that in my own life, get away from the old stories and really create a new one for myself.
Mm-hmm.
The end. Someone else is sharing now.
I appreciate that. I seem to remember you talking about when your parents went on the trip. When was that trip?
I don't remember what the first one was. But I'll tell you, this is how different they became. You know, first one, he didn't want to go. Well, I won't say that. My mother never thought he would agree to go. And when she asked, he said, okay. And she was in shock, like, are you kidding? Because he said, okay. So the last trip out of the country was to Egypt. And my father was so sick before that trip. They didn't know up till like 2 days before the trip if they were going to go. And the doctor told him, you know, you might die in Egypt. That's a distinct possibility. Or you could stay here and you might die. And my father decided to go. And that's how much he had shifted about travel. And he was sick, but he did every day but one day and was so happy that he did it.
I got out of it.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And he lived probably 30 more years.
Okay, so you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. How about you, Ray?
I'm just enjoying the demonstration of compassion through Aisha's talk. And this latest bit of revelation also affirms for me the importance of this work, of this spiritual journey, of the practice, because every day that I spend time in meditation and study and prayer, and in my practice, I become more attuned and more aware to the ever-present impulse of life seeking light. And it is so easy for, well, I can speak for myself. It can be easy for me to hold on to old stories that I've developed about other people, but stories that I developed when I wasn't as attuned to this life-giving expression. And so I would tend to look at the shadow side of their light. So by letting go of that story, it seems to me that Aisha, and as by way of demonstration, I'm able to celebrate the light in a person's life, regardless of how it may have seemed to have appeared, you know, while they were in my experience, you know, in relationship with me, whether they're here on this side of the veil or not. So I think that's really tremendously powerful. And again, Aisha, like you said, now, and I also get to practice that with myself, with the areas that, you know, that may be darker expressions of the love source within me. Maybe I'm indulging in the shadow expression some way. So I can be compassionate with it and find the light in it, find the love in it, and redirect it perhaps. But that's wonderful. So I'm enjoying it, taking notes.
Yeah, we have so much that we can expand into when we can let go of the opinions and judgments that we have about what other people should and shouldn't have done, how they should and shouldn't be. So much healing and expansion and clarity is possible with that movement and our own awareness. Yeah. How about you and your dad, Ray? Anything to share about you and your dad on this Father's Day?
Yeah, I have some wonderful dad expressions. The dad that contributed the DNA passed away when I was 17, but even before that, he wasn't really present in the household. So there's a whole story back there that I've had the opportunity to excavate and find the good in. The person I refer to as my father now is my stepfather. He's been with our family since I was about 13, 14. He married into a family with 7 kids. This is one special, this is one special cat.
Yeah, he's a courageous
and
man.
He's wonderful. Yeah, oh yeah. And but one of the coolest dudes I've ever known. He didn't come in with fire, you know. He just came in cool, and so he didn't stimulate a response from us kids of resistance. Instead, through his expression of just gentle love, he invited us to participate in a relationship, which he was all in for. It was wonderful. And so I'm going to go visit him once, a little bit this afternoon. He and my mother live in Paris, California.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. My dad is in North Carolina, and he lives outside of Asheville, North Carolina now. And so I haven't seen him in a while, with the quarantine and everything. But that'll change. That'll change. We talked earlier today.
Oh, good. No,
I write daily inspiration, and today I wrote about my father and my grandfather.
I read it. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it's sweet. My father, he reads my blog every day. He tells me.
Does he have commentary on it? Does he have insights on it?
The only thing he ever says is sometimes he'll say, that was really good. That's pretty much it. Or I was glad to read that. We talked briefly because he's got my cousin is visiting him today. His nephew, his brother's son. And so when I called, they were all visiting. So we're going to have a deeper chat tomorrow. But there are a few things I don't share in my blog because I know my dad reads it, which I can see here broadcasting live on Facebook because I know he's not going to listen to this. But I don't really edit myself that much. There's some things I don't want him to think about or hear about, but from my past, not from my present. But I was sharing, this is one of the things he commented on today in my daily shot of spiritual espresso that I publish every day, and note I wrote today about my father and my grandfather. I was sharing that when I was a little girl and we'd go visit my grandparents, I was the second grandchild. So my grandfather would get down on the floor and roll around with me and stuff like that, and which he didn't do with the later grandchildren. He was older and he just, he didn't do that so much later. So I was fortunate that I had a more intimate, touchy-feely relationship with him. And they were doing well financially at that time. And I remember when I was really little, they had new wall-to-wall carpeting. So this would have been early 60s. And I think wall-to-wall carpeting was more of a posh new thing at that point. It was beautiful carpeting. I remember that. And I'd run around barefoot on the carpeting, and my grandfather would get mad at me, and he scared me. Where's your shoes? Put on your shoes. And it didn't make any sense to me. Like, why is he yelling at me for putting on my shoes? I'm in the house. Why do I have to put my shoes on? But then when I was older, when I was a teenager, he told how when he was a boy, he didn't have any shoes. So I put the two things together, and now I understood why my grandfather was yelling at me. Because when he was a boy, he didn't have any shoes. Poor kids ran around without shoes. And his dad left when he was a little boy. So it was like poor fatherless children in the hills of Kentucky They run around without shoes because they don't have any. All year round, they don't have any shoes. But we could afford to have shoes, so I damn well better wear my shoes. So I understood then. And so that's the thing. It's like, Aisha, your story about your father. Sometimes when we can pull back and see things from their perspective, we could see why they do what they do, why they yelled at us, or why they were frightened for us, or why they couldn't bear to listen to us in that moment, or what was going on for them. And yeah, but as a child, how would I have known my grandfather was triggered by me not having shoes? So
That's kind of one thing that I appreciate about, again, this practice and the expansion of consciousness, because as we stay in it, we begin to see more by default. So compassion takes place more often by default, whereas before, with a more limited consciousness, limited awareness, my default is probably going to be something like defensiveness or attack or judgment, more likely. So I can see that. So, you know, I always think of what I'm involved in as intentional evolution. I call it evolution revolution. Yeah. And I intend to see more. I intend to know more. I intend to be able to respond from a higher place in every interaction. So I stay in this practice. I continue in these studies and continue seeking the light within.
oh, that's beautiful.
You know, Jennifer, you used the term spiritual maturity when you were speaking, which is one of my favorite terms. And I think a sign of spiritual maturity is being able to see, in a world of duality, is being able to see the grayscale. Things are rarely this or that. It's happening along a spectrum of consciousness. And the more mature we become, the more we're able to hold that whole grayscale without labeling things this or that, all good or bad, which it's never just that. But the ability or even the interest in that kind of complexity or ambiguity or grayscale, that really takes some maturity, because you got a whole complex stuff. And I think that's where, again, our principles and our values of divine love increase our capacity to do that.
Yeah, what you were sharing, Aisha, about no longer taking things personally. You know, that's life-changing. That changed my life when I realized none of this is personal to me. Not any of it.
Especially when people just go off, like when they really go off the deep end in your presence, that has nothing to do with you. That's how you can really know it's not. Now, sometimes it might be, well, let me consider that. And there may be something for you to look at, but when it's like, that has nothing to do with you. That's internal. But it takes a lot of work to not have it directed at you and not to take it on. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the person trying to hold up the walls of a crumbling building? You know what I mean? Because something in their identity has now been challenged, and they're trying to keep everything intact, but they're angry, they're fearful, there's some kind of a fearful response from within. So to me, it's like trying to hold from the inside, trying
Very
to
much so.
prop up the walls of a crumbling building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they just all over who happens to be in the presence. Yeah, it takes a lot, though. It takes a lot to be able to step back from that kind of seeming assault and see it for what it is. It's when you said that grayscale, because what I'm learning is that as I'm growing in spiritual maturity, that I'm beginning to see less of just individual Ray and more of the one self. And that I'm part of the one self. So I know myself as Ray, absolutely. But it's just easier to see the self as others and the others as the self. And we're all in this wonderful pool of the presence expressing as us. Yeah. I see.
Beautiful. Perfect timing there. We've got everybody come back from the breakout. Welcome back. And how was the breakout? Was it helpful? Was it good? Yeah, look at all that. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah, I was so happy. I shared this last week that a couple weeks ago, somebody had shared that in their breakout, that they turned on their camera, and it was the first time they'd ever felt safe to do that in one of these kinds of programs. And that's the kind of environment that we're creating. We're co-creating it together. You know, we are doing it together. We are being a safe place for other people to feel heard, and that we can listen with love. And that's a beautiful thing. And I would like to share here that Power of Love Ministry is a spiritual community. We're a spiritual community, and we're a very prayerful community. We have a prayer ministry that we pray every couple of hours. People in the ministry all around the world gather together to pray, and we're praying for ourselves, for each other, for all beings, for all of our brothers and sisters. We have an active practice of prayer and of non-judgment. This is the most basic thing in our community, that we do not judge each other. We don't give advice to each other. We honor and respect and care for each other. And we've been loving having these Sunday services, that for us, the opportunity to gather together on a Sunday is just more nourishment that we can receive and that we can share. And also in the Power of Love Ministry, we have a lot of free offerings. We do a lot of free classes. I write a daily blog every day. I record a prayer every day. I have my weekly Course in Miracles podcast. We have a lot of free offerings. You can just gorge yourself on our free offerings for sure. And so all of that is brought to you by our staff, our paid staff, and our volunteers. And at this point, I'm going to invite you to make an offering, as many people do in a service. And our offering goes to support the free offerings, and very importantly, it goes to giving us an opportunity to send a tithe to our speaker and our music. And that's very important to us, because I know I've known Aisha and Ray a long time, and the three of us plus Sean and Carla, we do a lot of volunteer work. We do a lot of volunteer work, and it's so nice when we can receive a tithe or an offering, and helps us pay our bills and live our life. So you get to support that. And that's one of the things about tithing and making offerings, is when you tithe, when you make offerings, you're supporting and nourishing the source of your spiritual food, right? That's the whole principle of tithing. And anyone who has a tithing practice knows for sure that you cannot outgive spirit. You cannot outgive God. It is not possible. You cannot. You can try. You will wear yourself out. And so what my grandfather used to say, what you give to the church costs you nothing, right? The more he and my grandmother gave away, the more they had. And that's the truth of it. So we all have our own relationships with money, with tithing, with giving and receiving. And so we're going to give you an opportunity here to make a donation. And I'm going to give you a couple, just a minute or so to do that. You can get the link. You can also find the link on our website. We are a nonprofit organization. And so we support spiritual teaching, spiritual community for people all over the world. And, you know, this is so important to me to be able to do this too, because years ago, before I started my own spiritual community, and I was going into ministerial school at Agape there with the Ernest Holmes Institute. And I was a newly licensed practitioner, and I was doing spiritual counseling, and I was counseling with people who were in places in other countries, in parts of the world, in parts of the United States, where they had not one other person that they could have a conversation with, that they could authentically share their spiritual beliefs. And we would have a conversation, and when I would hang up the phone, because this was before video and everything, I would hang up the phone and I would just weep. I would weep. I would be so grateful that I could have this conversation with somebody in Norway, or somebody in Wisconsin, or somebody in Alabama, or somebody someplace that had a belief in the unity of all life. I just wanted to connect with somebody else who didn't believe in sin and punishment, and who believed that God was all good, and that God is 100% supportive, and that we are part of God, not separate from God. And being able to have these conversations with people and be able to connect people in our breakouts and through all the different ways that we connect with each other and have these global connections. This is my thing. And so I literally, sometimes I just weep with gratitude that I'm able to do what I feel called to do, and that we can have these conversations, because I'm sure in every single one of us in some incarnation in this life or another, we did not have this freedom to have this conversation, to talk about these things, and to talk about the unity of spirit, that we're part of God, not separate. And so I am eternally grateful. And I trust that Sean has put the links to donate in the chat there, and that you can make those contributions, tax-deductible contributions. You know, I'll also just mention real quick, and then we're gonna hear a song from Ray again. I'd just like to share that, oh, it just went right out of my head. Oh, I know. We send text messages. We send inspirational text messages. You know, the way I feel is by any means necessary, we're going to connect with you. And even I get these text messages, you know, on my phone, of course. And I'm like, oh, I just got the text message from myself. Oh, that's the perfect message for me to hear right now from. So we send Course in Miracles messages, and we send messages of inspiration from me, and reminders to pray. And you can click the link and listen to my daily prayer. We change them up. We send different things. So you can sign up for that, and it's free. And if you like, you can also set a recurring monthly donation. So that's why I was bringing that up. So you can sign up for that at jenniferhadley.com. You can also sign up for that at acimtexts.com, acimtexts.com. And I will ask Sean to put that link in the chat as well. So if you'd like to get those text messages, you can. I really do like getting them. All right, so I'm just going to say a prayer for the offering and blessing the offering, and then we're going to hear from Ray, and then we're going to close out. I'm so grateful and thankful to know that we are abundant, because we are part of God. I am so grateful and thankful to know our personal prosperity, that we are prosperous in every way. What I know for each and every one of us is that we are part of the infinite love of God now and forever, and this is our prosperity. This is our abundance. This is where all of our blessings originate from, and it's where they all return to, is our infinite spiritual nature. I am so grateful and thankful to bless this offering and know that it is magnified and multiplied, and that we have an abundance of funds to do the study group support that we do, and to do the podcast and the prayers and the classes and the offerings and the Sunday service, and to be able to make tithes and offerings to our speakers and our musicians, and to support this circulation of divine inspiration and goodness. What I know is that all of our needs are met in spirit. Yes, our hearts are open, our minds are free, and we are grateful to share the benefits with everyone. We let it be, and so it is. Amen. 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 Ray, please give us one more high vibe inspiration.
You got it. You got it. I'm so grateful to be here with you all today. This is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to finish out with the song of transformation. Song of transformation. He was an average man, average face and average hands, average feet since we're on the tear. Satisfied with his mild success, as much as any average man could expect, until the day he was beset by his greatest fear. It all started with a feeling so intense that time and space could steal his head. What if I was born for greatness? What if I am really more than I think I am? What if mediocrity was never-ending stars for me? Miracles and wonders was the plan for the average man. Stretch and reach beyond the bell curve, but never did for fear of drawing back an empty hand. He said, what's an average man to do? So little time and all these things they do. Maybe I should just seek to want to understand. Yeah. But he couldn't hear me. A feeling so intense it about to blow his mind. He said, what if I was born for greatness? What if I am really more than I think I am? What if mediocrity was never-ending stars for me? The miracles and wonders was the plan for the average man. For the average man, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, he couldn't shake that feeling. A feeling so intense it about to blow his mind. He said, what if I was born for greatness? What if I really know na, 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 na.
You got us dancing in our chairs. Oh, that's so great. Thank you. Thank you. I'm dancing here in my chair. I'm so happy. Oh my gosh. We are blessed, overflowing. My heart is open, 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 and I'm so grateful to be able to spend this time with you, Ray, and you, Aisha. So now, just before we close out, we're going to have a prayer from Carla to close us out and bless us on our way. Before we do that, I would like to let people know how they can get a hold of Aisha, because she does spiritual counseling, and obviously she's an inspired speaker. And I'd like to know have Aisha tell us where they can find those resources to connect with her. And same for you, Ray. So Aisha, if you would go first and let us know anything you'd like to tell us about that.
I'm going to put it in the chat, just
Perfect.
aishamason.com. And there'll be a link there that says contact me, but it also lets you read a little more about what it is that I do. And if you're interested, I do a free 30-minute session just to see if we're a match.
So yeah, I encourage people, people know, Aisha, that I train spiritual counselors. I think spiritual counseling is really critical to our happiness, to be able to have someone that we can talk to and be totally transparent, that will never judge us and is going to help us live these spiritual principles. And so I cannot recommend Aisha more highly. And I encourage you to check out aishamason.com. And let's put a real link in so people can click. Sean, maybe you could do that. And Ray, what about you?
I'm happy to talk about this. Yeah. The best place to keep track of me is if you're a Facebook person, check out Ray Davis Music, High Vibe Records. I have a page there. And there you can keep track of concerts. I've been doing online concerts every couple weeks now for about a month and a half. So they're on a platform called Stage It. But the only way to get to the concert is through the information you will get by being in contact with me. So look me up on Facebook or on Instagram. Look for the official Ray Davis, and on Instagram. But on Facebook, it's Ray Davis Music, High Vibe Records. So that's the best way to find me there. Website is under design. It's being built now.
All right, so say it one more time.
Ray Davis Music High Vibe Records.
Okay.
Ray Davis Music, you'll find me there. Or just go to my personal page on Facebook. That's good too.
All right. Okay. And if you have a easy access to a link and you can put it in the chat, Ray, that's great. And I think that's everything. And we're going to say a prayer to close us out. I always say don't leave before the prayer, because we all can receive a blessing. Let's be great receivers. A lot of spiritual people are great givers. Let's be great receivers, even better receivers. All right. Carla, thank you for being here today. Thank you for praying us out. Sean, thank you for holding down the fort and doing the work of all the breakouts and monitoring these things. And GJ, thank you for all your help. He helps us behind the scenes and helps with all the login, things like that. And to Linda and Lori and all the support of our Power of Love team, thank you for helping us to do the service today. Carla.
Okay, I think I'm going to, thank you. Father, to all the fathers today, which are representative of our one Father, we're so grateful for all the opportunities offered to us each day, each experience, and now in this time of togetherness, to grow, to choose love, to expand our awareness by the sharing. We notice the ego mind wants to give us the meaning, the thought, but we offer that up. We're only interested in the thoughts we think with God. We notice by how we feel. And I declare, I'm determined. We are one, so you are determined. I know we're all growing into the fullness of our true self. We're expanding into the light, and we're bringing the whole world with us. So I share all this growth, all this expansion, all this forgiveness, all this acceptance, all this love with everyone, because we are one. And let's take it with us as we navigate this 3D form, this body experience. Take it forth into all our experiences and expand our awareness. Grow, choose love, connect with the I am, our inner wisdom. And just choose without judgment, without expectation of any response. Just choose and grow into the light as we all are. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen. Thank you so much, Carla. Carla's one of our spiritual counselors in training at Power of Love Ministry, and I appreciate so much her consciousness, her beauty, and her love. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. You are loved. Mwah. Yes.